Sony's dominated the top 10 camera sales in Japan for the past 5 months. Did they manage to do it again? And how well did Canon and Nikon fare? Stick around after this short message to see the results. But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. It's time once again to take a peek at camera sales from Yodobashi, the 4th largest Japanese camera retailer. And while it's a significantly large sample size, it is coming from Japan. There are regional differences, so sales data coming out of the Americas and Europe, including the rest of Asia, might be a little bit different. And the data, well, it's coming from the first 2 weeks of December, and it's going to be our last Yodobashi Top 10 for the rest of this year. That's right, we're coming to the close of another year, and I just can't believe it. I mean, here we are ready to move into 2024. And it just seems like not too long ago it was 2020. Anyhow, let's take a look at the data. Now, this is rather surprising. Sony, as I said in the intro, has been dominating the Yodobashi Top 10 for pretty much the past 5 months. Now, prior to that, Canon was pretty strong in the number 1, 2, and 3 positions, dominating the top 5 quite often. But that isn't the case in the last 5 months, and it's certainly not the case, well, today. In first place, we have the Sony a7C II. And this camera was announced not too long ago. It started shipping not too long ago, and it's been dominating the top, well, the last 6 weeks at Yodobashi in the number 1 spot. And in the number 2 spot, well, it's also the Sony a7C, but this time the kit form. And you might be wondering, well, why on earth are you counting this twice? Well, I'm not, but Yodobashi is reporting their top 10 SKUs, the top 10 products that are sold, and a kit has a different SKU than, well, body alone. So first and second place go to the Sony a7C II, 1 kit, 1 body alone. And in third place, can you guess which camera it is? It's another Sony. This used to dominate the number 1 spot, and it's the Sony a7 IV, a camera that's been out for the better part, I guess, of 2 years now. I kept thinking as I was writing or getting ready to do this video that the a7 IV had only been out a year, but no, it's now about 2 years. Time's going by really quickly. So the top 3 spots go to Sony, and in 4th place we do have a bit of a break. We have a Nikon, and this shouldn't be a surprise. It's the Nikon Z8. Since I think it was May the 11th, May the 12th, when we got the announcement, and then it started shipping about 2 weeks later. The Z9 has been doing very well as long as Nikon could get enough of these out to the market. The Nikon Z8 is a really, did I say Z9? I'm talking about the Nikon Z8. The Nikon Z8 is a terrific camera. Basically, I'd say it's a direct competition to the Canon EOS R5, but it differentiates itself by having a stacked sensor, and it can also push video up to 8K 60 frames per second, and it has Apple ProRes in 4K. So that's not the only Nikon in the list, but we have to go down a little bit further. Our next camera, it's a Sony again. Can you guess which one this is? Now, this camera was announced a year ago. Does that help? It's the Sony a7R5, a camera that a lot of people thought the Nikon Z8 was competing against, but we can tell by the specs side by side that really the Nikon Z8 is competing more against the Canon EOS R5 rather than the Sony a7R5. All right, now, so that's 5th place. In 6th place, guess what? We have another Sony camera, and this time it's the a7 IV kit. So we also had the a7 IV kit and body. And in 7th place, we have another Sony. That's right, another Sony. Now, this is not a kit version of anything we've mentioned above. Can you take a guess as to which one this is? Nope, I'll give you a hint. It's a cinema camera. And if you guess the FX30, you'd be wrong. The FX6 or FX9, you'd be wrong. Those are due for a refresh in Q1. It's actually the FX3. So there you go. 6 Sonys so far in the top 10. Will we see a 7th or 8th? Well, let's go ahead and look at the next camera. The next camera in the top 10 happens to be a Nikon, and it's the Nikon Z50, followed by the only Canon in the list. Can you guess which camera this is going to be? It's not the R5, it's not the R3. I think with the R1 and the R5 Mark II being refreshed in 2024, early 2024, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of sales of those cameras kind of dying off a little bit, even though since Black Friday we've seen some really incredible sales, up to $900 off the Canon EOS R5 and even the R5C, and $1,000 off. I checked just a few days ago, and the R3 is still $1,000 off, but that's not enough to get them higher up in the list. That was 9th place. 9th place for the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. 10th place, can you guess what it is? It's not a Pentax, not surprising there. It's not an OM Systems camera. It's not a Panasonic. It's actually the 3rd Nikon on the list. It's not the Nikon ZF, but it's the Nikon ZF-C. I gotta say that I'm pretty surprised by this list. Now, right now, it's almost 6 o'clock. It's December the 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. And I wasn't even sure if I was gonna record this video. I'm gonna have it come out tomorrow morning, which is Sunday, but it's not your typical Sunday. It's Christmas Eve. It's the last day you can do any shopping before Christmas. It's a very big holiday for millions and millions of people. So I don't know, maybe you're gonna be the only person watching this video. But still, it is Yodobashi, it is top 10 camera sales. If you've got nothing better to do on a Sunday, I figure what better to talk, well, sales data regarding what's coming out of Japan. Again, Yodobashi is the 4th largest Japanese camera retailer. And we really have seen Sony walking away with this thing for the past 5 or 6 months. And the A7C taking 1st and 2nd place. The A7 IV bumped down to 3rd place, with Nikon just showing up there with the Z8. And then we have 3 more Sony SKUs. And what this is showing is the worldwide shipped units for Sony is showing that they have around 26% market share. That's a huge jump from just a few years ago when they were just around 10 or 11%. That's a big change. And what we're starting to see is that, yes, Sony is moving an awful lot of cameras. People are very happy with the cameras, the A7C, the A7C II, the A7CR, the A6700, and those are just a few cameras announced this year. We also have the A7R5 that was announced at the end of last year, and we have many other cameras. We also had the FX30. There's a lot of cameras, a huge amount of cameras from Sony, and of course they've got their open E-mount, so you have a huge amount of glass to choose from. So it's not surprising to see the results that we're getting from Sony. Now, one of the reasons why we're not seeing as many cameras from Canon is Canon's getting ready for a rather big refresh. The R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1, as well as some lenses. And they're supposed to be, according to multiple sources, Sony Alpha rumors, and I think it's the Camera Insider or Canon rumors. I can't remember which one, but what they're saying is a big Sigma announcement regarding Canon RF mount is supposed to be happening in February, and I'd expect that to be right around CP+, right around the same time we're expecting an announcement, a teaser of the R1, as well as the R5 Mark II. So it depends on what happens there. I know I'm holding off buying anything despite the sale on the R5. I'm waiting to see what the R5 II is going to be. I'm going to purchase that camera. But what about other cameras? What about the recently announced R50, the R100? Sorry, I can't stop laughing when I think about it. Sorry, okay, serious now. The R8, the R10, these are pretty solid cameras, and they haven't been showing up much in the top 10 for the last 5 or 6 months, and they're relatively new cameras. Now the R7, I guess we're going on close to 2 years. It's still a solid camera. I was actually thinking of getting this camera myself because, well, I purchased this big guy right here there. That's not a rocket, that's actually the RF 200 to 800 millimeter. And while I can shoot crop with the Canon EOS R5, and yes, I can shoot crop with the Canon EOS R5, so why don't I use that instead of getting the R7? There's still something about pulling me to the R7 because people who are looking at doing wildlife photography aren't looking at purchasing the Canon EOS R5 and shooting in cropped mode. They're looking at getting a camera such as the R7, so that's why I was thinking of getting that camera, but I've got a lot to purchase in 2024. The R5 Mark II, the R1, maybe the 35 millimeter, and who knows what else is coming out. There's a lot coming out on the marketplace, so I want to kind of hold off and not spend all the money that I've raised in the first quarter and wait for the second quarter, because I think, and I'm talking about my fiscal year, so the first quarter of 2024, we're expecting a huge amount of announcements, and I think that's why we're not seeing a lot of, we're not seeing Canon do very well, and they're pretty well pulled out of this list. But Nikon, at the same time that Canon's been pulling back, we see that Nikon has been performing well, having 2 to 3 cameras in the top 10 at Yodobashi. Again, they're one retailer in Japan. It doesn't mean to say that other retailers, such as Map Camera, might be producing, well, they might be clearing up more Nikon, Panasonic, and other cameras. but we're not seeing any Panasonic, any Fujifilm, any other cameras. It seems to be just a Sony show here, with Nikon showing it with 3 cameras and a token Canon. But that's it for the camera talk in terms of top 10 camera sales. It is Christmas Eve. It's December the 24th, and where I'm living in Canada, while you might expect there to be several feet of snow outside, it's been raining all day. It rained the day before. I can see grass. It's green. It's not brown. Normally this time of year we can have 1 to 2 feet of snow on the ground, because December, like March, is when that jet stream moves out back and forth across us, just dumping tons of snow. And there doesn't seem to be any sign of it. This week it's supposed to be between 5 and 7 degrees Celsius. That's pretty warm for this time of year. But what I wouldn't be surprised to see happening in January, and if you live in Ontario, you're familiar with this, we can have it warm, 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 rain all the way up until the 3rd week of November, and then we just get hammered with snow. So I do hope we do get a little bit of snow, because I want to get out there and shoot some stuff. And shooting with you know, brown trees, brown grass, and water that's reflecting a gray sky doesn't really provide too much dynamic range in terms of color. It just looks pretty, well, depressing. And the white, certainly fresh snowfall on a sunny day, the glistening crystals from the snow looks really, really good. But as we close out 2023, I already published 2 videos, one on the best camera for 2023, as well as the worst camera for 2023. I want to say a special thank you to you, because you've been watching this channel for I don't know how long. Some people have been watching this channel for years. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I really do enjoy this. I've turned this into a business that it's done so well. I've incorporated, and I've had a really, really good year. I'm really surprised by that. But that you tune in to watch my videos day after day, week after week, year after year, it means an awful lot to me. Thank you so much. And I don't know what I've got planned for 2024. One of the things I've been working on, this is more of a bit of a behind the scenes, is improving my audio. And there's multiple aspects to audio. It's almost like video. There's so many different aspects. One thing is, and while I do have a script on this computer here, it's basically a 1-pager with some thoughts. And of course, in case I forgot the list of cameras, I've got them here so I can reference them. It's just, sometimes you can see it on the screen. Most of the times it's hidden. And that helps me with the information, how to say what I want to say. But to be able to speak into a lens as though I'm speaking directly to you, and to be able to have the right tone, the right amplitude, as though I'm speaking directly to you, is not easy. It's something I've been working on for 4 years, but especially in the last 5 weeks, controlling the speed at which I speak. Not talking so fast like this all the time, like I'm so excited about the insert camera or lens. And that's a whole lot harder than you believe, because sometimes I come down here and I might be shooting on my break or on my lunch hour. And so I'm very cognizant of the limited time constraint, and that causes me to speak faster. Have you ever been speaking in front of a large group of people, or you've had a limited time to speak, and you notice how you speak a little bit faster? Well, that's what I've been doing a lot of the last 3 years. So I'm starting to tone that down a bit more. It takes a lot of discipline. I do some public speaking at work. I'm used to speaking in groups of people, but it's different there. I can see everybody in the room. I can read the room. I can read people's expressions, and I can respond accordingly. I can crack jokes and so on. But to do that here in front of, well, I am talking directly to you. I've already recorded this, and at the time of recording, I'm looking into a big dark glass lens with some, you can almost see a little bit like hell through the lens, a little bit of red being reflected off the lights here and off a little bit of blue here. And it's a little bit intimidating when you first start, but it isn't the case now. But the camera doesn't smile at me. Notice when you're talking to somebody and they'll kind of nod and smile, or they'll look at you like you're crazy. That gives you feedback. The camera doesn't do that. And if they could somehow come up with a camera with a little bit of a little pop-up LCD that kind of reflects a real person and responding to how you speak, it might certainly help. And no, they're definitely not going to do that, and I'm not trying to start a rumor. But again, thank you so much for everything you've done, from watching, from subscribing, follow me on Twitter, commenting, participating on this channel, and using my affiliate links. You'll see that I've got them right here on the screen, and they've been on here for probably a minute or so now. I also have the links in the description. That is one of the biggest sources of revenue for this channel, because if you do use those links, I can get anywhere from 2 to 12% back. That's what allowed me to buy this lens here, the R5, the lighting and everything on this channel. It really does. It set me up for 2024. And when I say I'm buying the R5 Mark II, I am. And the R1, I definitely am, unless Canon does something absolutely crazy here and then charges $12,000 US or something. I might have to rethink it, but I've got funding in place for those thanks to your participation. And it doesn't cost you anything if you do use those links. So everything you've done to support this channel, Scott, Kathy, Tim, Dave, David, Muslin, all of you, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And I wish each and every one of you a very happy Christmas, a happy Boxing Day, and a happy New Year. And yeah, and then we start the Chinese New Year about a month later, and then the Persian New Year a month after that. But we've got 3 holidays, at least we do here in Canada and the Commonwealth. We have Christmas Day and Boxing Day, which is on the 26th. And then, of course, New Year's Day. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have yourself a great and prosperous 2024. And we'll see you right back here soon. Hopefully in the new year, maybe a little bit sooner. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.